So ever since we started our long-term food storage pantry back in 2016, there has been so many times that I am really grateful that we have it. Whether or not it just be a matter of being busy with 4 kids running around and homeschooling, or having the case of stores being shut down, having extra food on hand has been a huge blessing to our family. And one of the ways that we like to store food is in Mylar bags. Today is the first in a series that I will be starting here about how to make and keep a long-term food storage pantry. So today I'm going to be sharing with you what Mylar bags are, what kind of food you can store in them, all of the tools that you will need to successfully seal your Mylar bags for long-term food storage, a step-by-step on how to seal them properly, and some frequently asked questions that I get about sealing Mylar bags on my blog. Well, if this is your first time here, my name is Brianna, and my husband Gray and I like to learn, practice, and teach our children traditional skills. I don't even think it was that long ago that we were advised to have extra food stores, and somewhere down the line we got away from that as a culture, but I think that the wisdom of having an emergency food storage pantry or a long-term food storage pantry is a really good idea, especially if you have a family. So you can start with a goal of having a 1 month, 2 month, 6 month, 1 year food supply, but having a goal to have some food on hand will bring your family peace. It also has other benefits that I won't go into in this video because I really want to get to the topic, such as staying ahead of that inflationary curve. So having a long-term food storage pantry and utilizing freezers can really help you save a lot of money. I recently did a video about why every homesteader or someone that's interested in storing food long-term should have at least one freezer that can be an overflow that I will leave linked down in the description box below. But let's get on to today's topic. So what are Mylar bags anyways? Why do we use these to put food into for long term? So Mylar bags are just storage bags that come in all different sizes. They're commonly used for long-term food storage. But the bags typically look like they were made of a heavy-duty aluminum foil, although you can buy them with see-through windows or in other colors like black, so they don't always come in that silver. But you can fill these bags with dry food and oxygen absorbers to boost the shelf life of your extended pantry. And if you're unsure of how much oxygen absorber to use, I recommend referencing the USA Emergency Supply website. So once these bags are filled, you can easily seal Mylar bags with an impulse sealer, or even a straightening iron might work. Although if you're going to be doing a lot of food storage, I suggest just getting the impulse sealer. So once the food and the oxygen absorbers are packed in these heavy duty bags, then they will last much longer so long as they're packed properly and stored properly. So what kinds of foods can you put in Mylar bags? Well, you can store a variety of foods in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. Remember that the food stored in this way must be dry goods that contain 10% or less moisture. You cannot store oily foods in Mylar bags, which is why brown rice does not store as long as white rice. So some examples of dry foods that are great in Mylar bags are white rice, whole grains, rolled oats, all-purpose or bread flour, wheat berries, beans, all things that are very dry in nature. So let's get on to what exactly will you need to pack and seal Mylar bags properly. So you'll need your dry food, Mylar bags, oxygen absorbers, a permanent marker, and an impulse sealer. So here's our step-by-step for how to seal a Mylar bag. First thing is to label the bag. So while it is totally flat, this is a really good time to label the contents and the date of what you'll be filling the bags with while the bags are laying flat. Next, pour the food into the Mylar bag. It's really important to be careful that the Mylar does not crease or bend. So when we're doing this, we're being very careful to protect the Mylar bag by just not wrinkling it or bending it or folding it, and let it sit upright. Fill all of your food in there as much as you can, because a damaged Mylar bag will not seal properly. Next, lift the Mylar bag to settle. So gently shake the bag and lift the bag to make sure that all the contents are settled to the bottom. This will help the food fill in the air spaces in the bag so that you can fit more food. Then put the correct amount of oxygen absorber. Like I said, you can reference that USA Food Preparedness website that I will leave down in the description box below, or you can always, when in doubt, add more. So you can place the oxygen absorber right on top of the food. You don't have to bury it or anything. And then try to let out as much oxygen out of the bag before sealing. This will allow the oxygen absorber to absorb every bit of oxygen and get that tight seal and package. So number 5 is to seal the bag. Okay, this is very important. If you have an impulse sealer, use that. Like I said, I highly recommend getting one. If you're going to be doing this a lot, it's so easy just to have the tool needed. But you can also use a clothes iron or a hair straightening flat iron as well for this job. Whatever you're using, the heat source should be at a high setting to seal the bag correctly. When using a clothes iron, it's sometimes helpful to use a piece of wood or iron against it. Start heating from the middle of the bag and move your way to the outside. This will help seal and lay more evenly if you're not using an impulse sealer. The impulse sealer just does it, and it's self-explanatory. And the very last step is to place your packaged Mylar food into a bucket or a storage bin. I don't recommend keeping your Mylar stacked without having the protection against it. Again, because if you get a damaged bag, then that's going to cause air to get into the food. So using buckets or totes are a really good option. And if they're in Mylar bags, they don't have to be food grade. So yes, I recommend food grade buckets if you're going to be putting the food directly into the bucket. But if these are just a holding vessel for your bags of Mylar, they don't have to be food grade. They're meant to just be able to be stacked and protect those bags from getting damaged. Now on to some tips for how to store your Mylar bags. So remember that Mylar bags can tear easily. So I touched on this in the last step of how to seal them, but do store them in a container and in an environment that is clean, dark, dry, and cool for optimal food storage. Now on to the frequently asked questions that I get on the blog. I'm going to start with the number 1 question that I get, which is, whenever I show pictures on the blog of our food storage and our Mylar, I get the question of, how do you get the bag to have that vacuum seal look where it's totally sucked in and there's no gaps in the bag? This is very dense. It's like a brick of, what do we have? Basmati rice packed in October 2021. So this is a 2-year-old bag of rice, and it's just a dense brick. And the number 1 question I get is, how do I get it so that there's no air in there? So there could be a variety of reasons as to why your Mylar bag still has air in it, but I will point out that there's not a problem if there's still air in the bag. I do like to have them look like this because it ensures that there's no holes in the bag, which could be one of the reasons why your bag isn't having that vacuum seal look. So reason number 1 is that there's a tiny hole or crease in the bag. Remember back to the packing process, and I was talking about be really careful not to crease or bend the bag because that could damage it just enough that there's a small tiny hole that can let oxygen in. Reason number 2 is that there's not enough oxygen absorber in the bag of food, so it doesn't do a good job of pulling all the rest of the oxygen out of the bag. And then reason number 3 is that before you put the oxygen absorber in, you didn't squeeze all of the air out of the bag. If there's a lot of air space, then it might be pulling the oxygen, but there's still some left in the bag. The next question is, do you vacuum seal Mylar bags? And no, you don't need to vacuum seal Mylar bags. If you take the steps above with the oxygen absorber, they will make a vacuum. So for us, it's just an unnecessary step that we don't want to take. And so we just make sure that we are careful with our bags, we fill them, and we take the oxygen out and use as much oxygen absorber as needed, and it has that vacuum seal effect. It's much faster, especially if you're doing large quantities of food. And the last frequently asked question that I get is how to use Mylar bags, like from your long-term food storage pantry. So one of the things that I'm an advocate for is utilizing, so not having just your emergency foods stashed away, because otherwise you're gonna forget what you have, the food could get expired, but having just a really big rotational pantry. So I am constantly opening up Mylar bags and using food that we previously packed, but we're just expanding the food that we do have in our pantry. So as far as using it, it's a matter of opening it. We really like the zipper bags for this reason. So you can see that there's a little pull tab here, so I just simply rip this off and can either just use the bag and put the bag back in my pantry because I have a zipper here, or I can pour it into a jar like this just for easy usage, because once it's open, this is the rice that I'm going to be using for our meals. If you would like a written step-by-step for this process, I will leave a link of the blog post down in the description box below, just so you can have it as a reading visual if you are interested in that. If you're wanting to put more food in Mylar bags and extend your pantry, I hope that this was helpful in learning how to seal them easily for long-term food storage. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below, and I will see you next time.